Hey folks, welcome to my channel to yet another video of a beautiful dev tip that I'm doing today. And today the topic is classes. And if you have any knowledge in JavaScript, if you've been doing JavaScript development, you would be wondering, what? Why do we need to know about classes? We already know that. And you're not wrong. But there are people out there who might be new to the language, and this is a beautiful new topic for them. And JavaScript also is having this new set of features in 2015, ECMAScript 2015. It was not there before, and that's something new to JavaScript developers as well. Sometimes those who have been there in the back and back in those old days, left behind, they might be thinking, okay, these new syntaxes in JavaScript are weird. Okay, but today we're not exactly talking about how classes are created in JavaScript. Oh, you might be feeling bad already, but don't worry, we're going to do something exciting. If you want to understand classes or all these core features of JavaScript, you have a lot of videos, but what we're doing today is trying to convert a class which is part of ECMAScript 2015 version back to ES5, which is the previous version of JavaScript, which did not have classes. It had something called function constructors. They were just constructors, there were no classes. So we'll try to convert a simple example of how classes look like into how constructor functions would look like if they implemented the same simple functionality. Okay, there's nothing else. We're going to focus on that. But before that, for those of you who are new to JavaScript or coming from a back-end language like Java or some other language, you might be wondering, okay, so what's different in JavaScript classes compared to Java classes, for example? And if you think they're not that much different, you have to think again, because here is the MDN documentation, and if you read this first paragraph, it says they're primarily syntactic sugar over JavaScript's existing prototype-based inheritance. What does that mean even? So there's a different type of inheritance model in JavaScript? Yes, there is. It's not the classic object-oriented inheritance model in JavaScript. So they're not creating a new inheritance model in JavaScript. Oh, that's too bad. You guys might be thinking, okay, finally object-oriented programming is there in JavaScript. We can use object-oriented inheritance model. Oh, of course, object-oriented programming is there. There are objects everywhere in JavaScript. But this inheritance model is not the object-oriented inheritance model. It is prototype-based inheritance model disguised as object-oriented inheritance model, just for the benefit of those people who want to newly learn the technology and they come from a background of object-oriented inheritance model. Duh. Right? That's why you guys who are new to the technology, new to JavaScript, newly coming from JavaScript, you thought the JavaScript is dead. No, JavaScript did not die. You might be thinking Java might die and you want to jump into JavaScript because JavaScript has everything that Java has. No, that's not true. That's not at all true. We have a set of unique features. We're trying to mimic the Java features so that you guys will follow and fall in love with JavaScript, and then leave the age-old Java behind and come join the bandwagon of JavaScript. Okay, sorry if I am being too emotional, trying to bring up your hopes or spirit so much, but that's the reality, man. So we're dealing with prototype-based inheritance. So, all this jibber jabber aside, let's do a concrete example. Let's see how the implementation is done and how we can rewrite that into the prototype-based inheritance that existed before ES15. It exists now as well, but we can use a better syntax of the class. So let me just uncomment this piece of code. So let's see what we have here. We have a couple of classes. This is one class. This is another class. Both classes have constructors, and both constructors take name and age. The person class takes name and age, sets it to the this keyword, and it has a couple of methods, eat and sleep, which simply console logs something. And then we have a player class which extends person, right? So you see the class keyword, extends keyword, constructor keyword, super keyword. All these came in 2015 ECMAScript. Okay, now what this does is it calls the super with name and age, but and it sets the energy variable of the this keyword, and then play is the new method that gets added only in the player class. Now let's see. So now let's take an example and see how this fares. Okay, so we've created a player class, gave it a name, age, and an energy, and then player dot eat, sleep, and play. Sachin eats, Sachin sleeps, and Sachin plays. Right? If I run, of course, that's what prints. But now what we're going to do is simply we're going to try and mimic this functionality in the old ECMAScript ES5, right? So let me just get some space over here, okay, and then move these guys down, and let me write it. And now we know that we have two classes, so let's create two functions, person and function player. Now these act as function constructors themselves. Those constructors that we wrote here, that's what goes here. So I'm gonna take name, age here, and name, age, and score. Oh, sorry, energy here. Now what I'm gonna do here is this dot name equals this. Sorry, name. This dot age equals age. So we just copy whatever is here and then do it. And then over here, we're going to do this, like this. Let me comment that. Well, we didn't have the super keyword, so what do we do now? What we have to do is, we have to do something like this. Person.call. Call is a method available on each function, can be any function. So we'll say call, and the first argument is the this keyword. In this case, the this keyword of this function, and then the name and age. So what this does, it goes here, the this here will be the this here, so it'll append name and age and returns that, or just inline updates that, so that this will now have name and age, and also after this line number 36 it will have energy, all three of them. Now is that done? Not yet. We have some methods here, right? So this method, let me copy these two methods, are on the person object. So I do this, right, and then uncomment it. So this has to be person dot prototype, okay, dot eat equals to function. All right, so it has to be like this. And similarly, person dot prototype dot sleep equals function. All right, so this seems to work fine. Now we have one more function on the player object, one more one more method on the player class, right? So we have to do the same thing there as well, but instead of person we have to do player dot prototype dot play equals function, right? And then this will automatically refer to the player object. And now, okay, you might think this is all that is required, right? You might think that with in the player class we've successfully called the super and we have the function, and the other two methods, eat and sleep, are also there in the person object. Let's try to run this, and I'll tell you there's one issue here. Let me run this. See, Sachin.eat is not defined. Why does it do that? So did we not do the super call properly? We did, but it is only executing this function, right? As far as player is concerned, these two methods, eat and sleep, are not attached to player. They're not found in the prototype, right? So what do we do? Do we need to copy these and put it here like that? Let me copy and show you. Do you think we need to do this? Like this? That's one way to do it, because you know that the syntax or whatever functionality within these functions is very small. That's one way to do it. Duplicate the methods or functions, but that's not the ideal way, right? So you're not going to duplicate code, which is not, it's not a good practice, right? So the correct way to do this is after the function constructor is created, you have to do this. Player.prototype equals person object create person.prototype. Okay, this single line is the most important one for inheritance to work in JavaScript before ES15. Okay, ES 2015. What this means is Object.create takes whatever is the argument and sets it to the prototype of whatever it is getting assigned to, right? So essentially this is an object. This prototype variable itself is an object. It has eat and sleep, and these eat and sleep, and some other object related methods or function related methods like call, right? So this is also there. Now what happens here is this object gets set as the prototype of the player.prototype, right? So it will create that chain between person and player that acts as a fallback for the prototype. If something is not found in player's prototype, it will go and check in person's prototype, because this linking is done right here on line number 47. This is the most important line of this inheritance model. So now this is done. Let me run it again, and now this works, right? There are nuances here on how this can be not so much efficient. For now, we'll contemplate this. We'll try to understand this part of how we are able to achieve the same functionality of inheritance we achieved in class model, class-based syntax, how we can do without the classes, how we used to do when there were no class syntaxes or no class keyword or anything like that. So this is how we used to do it. This is how we are supposed to do it, to create that object or prototype-based inheritance with functions, using just the functions, right? But you can see that this is a little bit confusing to understand. There's a lot of different pieces, whereas here everything is connected, everything is in an enclosed class section here, right? Yeah, that's the difference. I think that makes sense, right? That's the reason class keyword and class syntax has been introduced, to make this process simplified, right? Who would have known if some guy missed this line, it would have completely messed up the code base, right? So the logic would have been missed. But class syntax takes care of all these nuances for you, right? Calling this person.call, all these things are taken care of by this simple syntax. Okay, so I think that's a good point. That's a good note to stop our video, and you can try this on your own. Try to mimic the class-based syntax in JavaScript to be written in the constructor fashion. And you guys who are new to JavaScript, trying to learn JavaScript, just found that classes are an interesting feature in JavaScript. I'm sorry guys, this is how it works. It's a little bit quirky because it's not the normal way of working in JavaScript, and classes have been introduced, object-oriented programming is introduced and used a lot of time just to mimic the object-oriented programming that you guys love in Java or other programming languages. I know I'm exaggerating things. We know that object-oriented programming is very successful with JavaScript. You have a lot of good things, good tools available because of this model. But I'm just exaggerating. But that's what it is, guys. That's a little different from your traditional object-oriented inheritance model. So try to read this documentation, try to understand the differences, and get better at JavaScript. Catch you guys later. Bye.